Okay, cool. All right. Well, look, it's 2 past. I'll be sure to keep an eye on entries just in case there's anyone that wants to join us throughout the conversation. But I think let's get into it. Okay, so kia ora, Woman Jacka, a warm welcome to everybody who is joining us today. I'm Rachel Kelly, the founder of Etu. Etu is the Māori word meaning to stand, and our purpose is to take a stand for the environment by raising awareness of the impact the fashion and textile industry has on our planet. Before we get things started, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country in which this talk takes place upon today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. It is our privilege to live and work on this land, and we recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. A couple of housekeeping bits before we get started today. So today's talk is 1 hour. We're going to have a 45-minute conversation with our panelists and then 15 minutes Q&A. So for those that have just joined, I just mentioned earlier, if you've got a question, please feel free to submit it in the chat box. Simply write it down in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get to all the questions in the 15 minutes. If you've got a particular question for, aimed at one of our speakers, feel free to just put their name or their brand in brackets. Now, we are recording the session, so if you don't feel comfortable, please turn off your camera. Most people have their cameras off, so you're all over it. Awesome. Okay, great. So look, the topic of today's panel talk is learnings from lockdown, how local designers are navigating change. Before we get into it, I just wanted to state sort of, why we're here and why we're talking about this. We all really believe that knowledge is better shared, and that we have a lot to learn from each other's lived experience. And by sharing that knowledge, we are building community and we're building resilience. And I think off the back of the year that, a lot of us have had, community and resilience are incredibly important to, getting through challenging times. So today you're going to be hearing real world examples from local independent Melbourne designers that could inspire change in your own practice, but also, maybe motivate you to reconsider purchasing or shopping in a different way. One moment, I'm just letting people in. Hello and welcome. If you've just joined us, we're just getting into today's talk. All right, wonderful. So on today's panel, I'm joined by Emma Hewitt, the founder of Hue Clothing, and Cherry Collins, the founder of Poet Studio. Thank you so much for being here today, ladies. It's wonderful to have you here. If you would just be able to introduce yourselves and your brand, that would be much appreciated. So Emma, I'm going to swing to you first.
Oh, thanks, Rach. Thank you so much for having me on tonight on your panel. So for those who don't know me, my name is Emma Hewitt and I am the founder of Hue Clothing. We are a small Melbourne label. I started the label in 2014. At the time, I was working in costume design and I recognized there was a gap in the market for really bright menswear pieces. So I started to collaborate with artists to create prints, and they were all just printed onto men's shirts. And from there, over the past 6 years, the brand's evolved into women's wear and accessories. And now we are set up in Brunswick. We've got a studio / kind of store showroom here. And that's kind of where we've been operating for the last month. But that's about it.
Wonderful, thanks, Em. And Cherry, are you able to sort of introduce yourself and Poet?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel tonight, Rach. So my name's Cherry Collins and I'm the everything behind Poet Studio. I actually launched Poet Studio in February of this year. I know what timing. But, having worked in fashion as a pattern maker for 10 plus years, I have found that the thing that I most commonly get asked about is, where can I find really nice trousers? And look, I love a trouser, and I understand the power of a well-cut trouser, especially on the female form. So here we are. That's my latest venture into fashion, is trying to make sure that every booty out there looks as good as it possibly can.
Oh, wonderful. That's so great. I'm actually wearing a pair of your trousers now, and I can definitely vouch for the feel-good feeling that comes from wearing a piece of Poet. So, oh, that's wonderful. Thanks, ladies. So to, really just kick things off is, we have 2020 has not been as many of us would have expected. And, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that we're living in unprecedented times. Are you able to, share with the audience, what the last sort of 7 to sort of 8 months has looked like for you both, and, for your brands and for your business? Emma, are you able to kick things off?
Yeah. So it's been quite a roller coaster ride. It's been, there were times that it was super quiet. Then it picked up when we introduced other products like the masks. It's been, some things have been very kind of good about being a small micro business and being agile and nimble, is that we're able to kind of change our course, or kind of we're able to quickly turn things around. So I think that's been kind of something I could work to my advantage. And also not being on the larger scale of having full-time staff to have that issue, but it's been definitely a testing time for business, and kind of just having to roll with it and just kind of keep on going. And I think Melbourne has been a business in Melbourne, and just having that most of the year, everyone's closed, and that's been really has made a significant impact on the day-to-day business. And so I think once we can now open again, it'll be interesting to see how everything how long it takes to get back to where it was.
Absolutely.
But what do you think?
Interesting. You sort of talked about the idea that we've all been closed. I mean, there's an element of like, we've all been in it together to a certain degree. There's sort of been a little bit of comfort in knowing that, well, no one's not been impacted by the year we've just had. Cherry, are you able to sort of share your experience? Obviously, you just launched a business in February, you were saying. I can imagine that you wouldn't have, if you saw lockdown coming, you probably wouldn't have. Well, I don't know. Like, tell us, how was that?
Well, I mean, so definitely in terms of the scope of the year, it was a really awkward time to start a business. However, I've got nothing to compare it to, so I don't have past cash flows. I don't have past customers or seasons to compare my experience to. So I would say that for the most part, things have been going okay, considering that it's something that's just started. But I think, as far as challenges go, I have always done a certain amount of made to measure in my practice. So whether it's, been through pattern making for other clients, or just seeing private people for bridal, or, for bits and bobs of coats or whatever, it's been really challenging to not have the direct sort of relation to the customer and customer feedback. So not being able to see clients and have that interaction for the feedback of my work. So that's one thing. Other challenges, I would say, are things like, you know, the whole stress of the situation, the not knowing, the fear around it, the feeling of being cooped up inside and not being able to leave the house. All of that stuff is incredibly energy sapping. And when you are a solo person running a business, and Emma, you would probably experience this as well, and you too as well with Etu-Rach, you know, any tiny energy drain on you affects how you can show up for your work and for your business, because there is no team, there's no cogs already turning independently of you. It is all you. And so yeah, I would say that that's probably been the biggest thing. I went through a lot of personal stuff too, which obviously I don't need to go into, but it's at times been a real struggle to get the motivation together to show up for what's supposed to be my passion project every day. You know, that's been really difficult.
Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, there's a lot in I guess both what you were talking about, Emma. You I think motivation's a really interesting area, Chess. I'm keen to pick that up shortly. But Emma, you mentioned masks, and I know that there is both. It's a common thing that you both, Poet and Hugh, dabbled in the mask making. I think a lot of a lot of Melbourne designers explored that product. They almost, you'd say they sort of came to the party and saved the day. You know, a lot of us, we didn't want to be wearing disposable, run of the mill face masks, and it's not very Melbourne. It's not what we do. We're very considered, and so are you able to sort of just share, I guess, your experiences of that, because you both did it. You weren't doing masks, then you're doing it on scale, and so there was just, obviously you were adapting to what was needed. Are you able to share your experiences in that space? Yeah, Em, do you want to start things off?
Okay, sure. So, so yeah, it was very sudden, and it was kind of just overnight that they became like a necessity. It was mandatory. So it was lucky. I mean, I held on to lots of scrap fabric. One of my friends had closed down her business and passed on boxes of elastic to me, which I bought of her. So I was quite lucky. I had all the resources and the materials available. And then I was thinking I was going to sew them, and then it just span out of I just had to end up getting them manufactured locally, which was the best thing in the end. So that again was just scrambling and trying to kind of resource someone locally who could make them and turn that over to me very quickly. But it was a stressful time, but it kind of also that sudden influx of customer traffic to the website and engagement and interaction, then that really grew the business. It was a way to be able to, share my prints with people. I had all the prints, in the scrap fabric. So that was great from all previous collaborations. It was kind of a revamp, or it was, utilizing all the beautiful fabric. So I mean, it was stressful and everything, but in no means like it was definitely worth it 100%. And I got to, the cash flow really helped keep the business afloat during that time. So yeah, I am grateful for Mask.
Yeah, wonderful. And Sherry, your experience of that, because I mean, you just introduced yourself as making, making people's butts look good in trousers, and then you and now you're now doing facial coverings too. So
Oh, look, it was an interesting one because I'd had one mask made for me by a friend, and as the news was coming out that they were now going to be mandatory for any outside of the home activity, I popped into my studio on that Wednesday night or whatever, Wednesday or Tuesday night, and made one up for myself. And I thought, oh, there's probably a few people who might want one of these, literally on a whim. And then I got absolutely slammed by demand. I thought, if I make 10 masks, then fine, at least it helps somebody out. But I ended up making about 150 in a couple of weeks. And oh yeah, look, it was very tiring, but it was a really interesting experience for a few different reasons. And that I would say that, great. It's really great to feel purposeful and useful in the community and what's actually happening in the now out in the world.
Yeah.
So there was that element of satisfaction came from it. But it also really turned into an interesting, it's like an interesting branding and marketing exercise, because all of a sudden there were all of these people who perhaps had been following my work, had been interested in what I do, stepping in and saying, oh, actually, I'd like a little piece of your brand. And so in effect, what was happening was that with each mask that I was posting out, I was sending a quality sample, as an example of my make, my finish, the quality of the fabrics that I choose to select, because they were all made from offcuts. And also, it gives people a chance to interact with me as well. So, so I think, like Emma said, it was a good cash boost at a really, really difficult time. But it also showed me what interest there was in my business, and also gave me the experience of having a lower price pointed and less complicated item.
Yeah, that's
in the
interesting.
Range, which ended up knocking into the development of a couple of hat styles for summer. So,
okay.
Like it was just a little bit of an interesting learning experience, because I, haven't, I've done lots of work for other people, and I've done really small scale kind of business things, but never anything like that before.
And can I just ask, for the audience's sake, can you just talk through your price point? So like a trouser's what? Like
so for me, a trouser is it is between $300 and $400, but it's also it's a complicated item in the sense that you've got to come in, try it on, get it fitted, get it tailored, and then it goes. It's a little bit of a process. Whereas a mask or a hat is just you order it online and it gets sent to you.
That's right, because your mask was around $25. So it is an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure if we'd spoken to you in Feb, you wouldn't have really dreamt about doing a product for under $50
No way.
because of the amount of effort that goes into that. And so yes, you were doing incredible service to Melbourne. A big thank you on behalf of Melbourne to you both, because your masks were beautiful.
And also, Rach, can I just interrupt and say that today we are at 0 cases?
You can with that. You can interrupt.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's big cheers on the line. Emma, I just wanted to pick up a little something. So, because I know the volumes of masks you were doing were, really, really high. I remember you doing masks really before it was mandatory. So I can imagine you were almost established. And so, you said that there was a spike to the website. I mean, you're only a one-man band. Like, how did you handle that? That just sounds like, we all know, like, as a owner operator, you're doing website, you're sewing, you're just doing it all. So are you able to share a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it kind of having that experience of the huge amount of customer service that was required and customer engagement, it kind of propelled this new setup for my business, which is also I started to seek out help with the customer CRM side. So that was, yeah, it took a while to kind of set up the platform and the templates. And I ended up actually outsourcing and getting a VA, which is, for people who don't know, it's a virtual assistant.
Okay.
And yeah, so now I'm able to have, I have this girl, Geraldine, and she, if you've had any custom inquiry over the past couple of months, she's probably helped you out. It took a lot of training and setting up, but there were things that had to be implemented, and it was, yeah, that kind of definitely the mask, because I found myself some days, you know, sitting in front of the computer and for 6 hours I was just typing back to people's questions, and I'm like, this is nuts. I'm not not going to get anywhere if I'm just and you know, of course I want to answer everyone's question because you know, the mask, they wanted to know about the mask, the elastic,
Yeah.
if it was DHS certified with 3 layers, if it was, you know, delivery dates, fittings, like how it fits.
And so
did it
can I just
include-
ask, because did you do custom sizes or was it one size?
No, I did 2 different types of elastic, and then it kind of complicated things, and then I kind of was saying, and then yeah, I did actually make some kids masks, but I actually didn't even end up putting them online. I was just kind of like, oh my god. So yeah, the more variations I had, I was just making it really difficult for myself, because also just dispatching the item, you know, sometimes each day we'll dispatch in 70 masks, and if you might put in the wrong type of elastic one, and then you just have to end up sending them another item. Yeah, anyway,
Oh,
huge
wow.
mess. But,
and so, but can we
yeah.
back to your VA? Because I think everyone's wanting to know. So you've got a virtual assistant. I mean, that's like, we hear how tech's going to sort of save the world. And I mean, it feels like, tell us more. So how did you find her? And you mentioned there was a lot of training involved. So, you know, can you sort of, just give the audience a bit more insight?
Yeah. So there's a lot of online platforms that are helping with outsourcing. So there's Upwork, FreeUp, there's
Was it
couple
HubSpot?
other ones from the.
Is that one?
So HubSpot, I use that program. That's more like a CRM program, which we use. So on that, you can basically, all the customer service comes in, and you kind of create tickets. I'm sure if you've been on any kind of online thing, you get a ticket. It's assigned to it, like a customer comes in and then gets assigned a number. It's almost like a barcode system.
Yeah.
It helps you kind of follow the journey of the customer, and then when you sign off, you can just touch base to see if the customer's satisfied. It's just having that kind of sophisticated kind of measure of just checking in to make sure what they asked has been, you know, if they've been answered and they're happy. And so I looked for an intern, sorry, not an intern, I looked for a VA, and I was on, what was it, Upwork. I got a couple, and it's really hard because you don't know until you really work with them. So you kind of trial them for a couple of weeks.
May I ask where your VA is based?
Yeah, so my one's in the Philippines.
Okay, wow.
And yeah, so she's her name's Geraldine, and I end up finding her on an independent kind of website, which is it's not a host website. It's more like it's a Philippines website that's run by a guy in the US, and they just upload their resume, and you pay them directly. You don't pay them through the third party service.
That's good.
Yeah, so she's stay-at-home mom, and this is a way that she can work at home, and she has a computer that she's able to log on each day. The Philippines is great for Australia because they're kind of only 3 hours behind, so they can be working with you during the day like similar to our work hours, which is beneficial. So it's not. And then once you set them up with all the templates and all the information about the product, and they're able to, I use a lot of like Google spreadsheets, like Google Docs, and you share everything with them. And it's really easy. So it's, I mean, I find it really difficult to find the time to write back to everyone's email of like questions. And I really want to give the customer the best customer experience possible. So having that VA, having Geraldine being able to, you know, that's her like role, and that's all she has to worry about. And that means it all gets taken care of. It's great. So
that's great.
Yeah,
and so tell me,
one great thing.
So if someone jumps onto your website now and they type in like help, like, you know, where are the masks? I guess they could probably say, hi, Geraldine, you know, I've just heard great things about you in a panel talk. That's wonderful. And so, well, that's such a, you know, that is a really great example of an independent brand adapting due to the situations. And you know, it sounds like that's something you're continuing on with despite us sort of coming out of lockdown. So that's really exciting to hear. I think we've seen a lot of brands, you know, virtual assistants, private personal assistants shopping. It's there is a big increase in that, but, you know, more with some of the bigger brands. So it's great to see some of the independents in there too. And so I guess just in terms of, you've sort of talked a little bit about, given a couple of examples of silver.
Emailed me. Sorry.
Oh, Sherilyn, should we get her on? We just want to talk a little bit about the silver linings of lockdown, because it sounds like there was a lot of fast-paced change, high stress and adaptation that was having to happen. And you both touched on a little bit earlier just the impact that had on, you know, obviously we're in hard lockdown, things like sourcing and seeing your customers became a lot harder. For, you know, are we able to just share a little bit more, Cherry, I might swing to you, just on what, you know, what local sourcing looked like during lockdown, and, you know, on the topic of silver linings, like, you know, are there some things that you would like to see continued from the way that you had to adapt, or are you just like, I hope this never happens again, and you know,
look, I mean, there's silver linings aplenty. I think for me, a lot of them are personal, but also, you know, they flow into my professional life. So it's I feel like I've got a renewed gratitude for you know, for the opportunities that I've got and the ability that I have to create my own life, because, you know, obviously the world is a very unpredictable place, as we now know that everything that seems so sturdy is not necessarily so sturdy. And so having the ability to create my own life with my own two hands is something I feel really grateful for.
Well, that's really beautiful. I mean, that's super profound. That is, what a lovely realization.
Well, I mean, I don't think that anyone who's gone through this lockdown with any sense of really feeling it can escape the gravitas of the perspective shift that's happened. You know, in so many ways in which we approach our lives. But
and so in relation to the experiences you had with like local sourcing, and were there some good and some bad in that, or you know, because you typically spend a lot of time at fabric shops, and I'm sure that you weren't allowed to.
I do. I do. Look, there were some blessings and some curses. So, you know, for me, for me, my process is very hands-on. You know, I usually spend a day a week whizzing around, picking things up, collecting components, sourcing swatches for customers as they've requested them. And so I have basically not been able to do that. The silver linings therein, however, are things like it's forced me to learn how to be more organized and more on top of my timeline. So instead of working my timeline so close to the bone, I'm now thinking a little bit more in advance of myself. So, okay, if I've got a trouser that's due next Friday, that means I have to have all the components by Monday.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever, rather than picking them up on Wednesday and whipping it up on Thursday and then shipping it out on a Friday. Because what was happening was that I would have to call a supplier and say to them, hey, I am looking for XYZ, can you send me some swatches? Or they'd send me photos if it was a color or a pattern issue, a pattern that I was looking for. And so you're placing a lot of faith in your suppliers. And so, you know, I guess I'm glad that over time I've built those relationships, but that was really challenging. And also things like, you know, I can't do buttonholes myself. So and not being able to go to my makers was really hard too.
Yeah.
So things were getting delayed and, you know,
Yeah.
so it was all a bit tricky. Yeah. So, you know, I guess in a sense, I've become a lot closer with my suppliers and I have a lot more trust in them. So even now I could probably comfortably say to one of my suppliers in particular, I could say, hey, look, I've got this particular fabric. I need something that's this weight and this kind of hand feel, but can I have it in a pinstripe? And if you got any navy or whatever, and they'll just send me swatches rather than me spending 2 hours going all the way over there. So, you know, blessings and curses.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and
it's a little bit of both.
I mean, I guess it's the great thing about having you know, two designers on the call. Oh, my cat's just joined me. Hi, Scully. I guess you know, you just talked about local sourcing, Cherry. You do a lot out of both Melbourne and offshore. You know, has there been like you know, any sort of hold-ups in that space, or was it a little bit business as usual? And you know, in terms of getting product out of China?
Yeah, so all the post was super slow, and I was trying to get some samples to China. I have a couple of factories that I was working with, and one of the factories actually they didn't end up getting enough work to sustain themselves through. So I hadn't really made I hadn't started production with them, so they end up actually, I think, closing, and I don't know if they've opened again. So that was something that I had to figure out. I had to quickly get my samples. They hadn't, and then samples were sent to one of my friends overseas. She was able to hook me up with another factory that could take on my production.
Wow.
Which was, it was kind of lucky that I was able to.
That sounds so hairy.
That sounds like you're making it sound really casual, but it's like that with like hard lockdown just sounds so stressful. And let's not forget like hundreds of mask orders just like coming at you. So
it was dark time. I think it was, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I was about to start my summer productions and then that all happened. So I mean, people will notice things that I've photographed ages ago will only start to arrive in December and January, and now they'll know why. This is like what happened. So then the next factory just had to resample everything again, and it was a lot of I wasn't unable to really get my samples sent back to me. So again, that was like just also talking about the trust with the the suppliers and the manufacturers. You have to, I think, then start to, if you're not able to get to them, or if they're not able to get the product to you, it kind of, you've got to somehow communicate over video chat or the computer or something. And I guess it's hard not being able to touch and feel it. So you've just kind of got to, leave that with them and just hope that I have a lot of trust in this new manufacturer, because I know that some other Australian labels work with them and they have really high quality in that. I don't know how I would have gone if I didn't have this contact.
That's interesting.
Engine, I think, and with my suppliers in Melbourne, they've been great. When I couldn't, I used MREC. They're located in Collingwood, and they were able to, if you ordered something before bid day, they had a courier, and they were able to deliver that for $7, like to your door. So that really helped so many times I was running out of mask lining or something and just get another roll of fabric delivered.
Wonderful. That is really you mentioned like needing that trust. I mean, I think that that's such an important part of any relationship, but I think that a lot of relationships were really tested, weren't they, like personal, professional, during this time, and it's great to hear that it sounds like you've both been able to you've got those relationships, and it's been able to sustain, I guess, this challenging time. I'm just conscious of time. We've got a couple of questions left. So there's been a lot of talk during lockdown around I can't wait for things to return to normal. But then, I think a lot of people started to think, well, do we want it to return to normal? And what does the new normal look like? I guess my question to both of you is, this notion of business as usual, where we're nearing 2021. What are you looking forward to for next year? Is it that you just hope that 2021 just goes back to how it was, or are there some things about the last year that we've just had that you would like to see continued?
I mean, for me personally, I think the one thing that's happened for me personally, but I think it's part of a larger movement, is that there was this talk of like the big pause, and we are starting to swing on out of that big pause now. But what I would really like to see stay is a certain level of easy pacedness to the way that we live. So whether that translates into the things that you buy or the food that you eat or how you go about your daily life, I would really like to see that stay, because I don't know about anyone else, but with Christmas right around the corner, I'm suddenly feeling kind of stressed, even though I'm not necessarily doing anything about it. But it's because of all of this sudden frenetic activity that, in addition to this sort of like maybe upswinging into normal, like back to normal, it's also Christmas time, so it's a bit of a double whammy.
I know what you mean. It's like if anyone mentions the silly season, I'm like anxious about it. I'm like, what? Like I dread the moment I've got to like there's a clash in the diary, because we've just not we've had a year with just sort of leaning into like no FOMO,
exactly. But I would really like to see what I have witnessed in terms of, when you slow things down, you can be more present with yourself and what you need and what you desire. And so that then naturally translates into making more conscious decisions about what you might want to wear or what you might want to do with your time. And I think, coming out of 2019 and into 2020, there's definitely been an upswell of people wanting to buy locally, buy sustainably, buy slow fashion, buy timeless and seasonless pieces, or even just to buy things that you like, not what you're told you should like by the trend setters. And yeah, I've seen that upswell happen, and I hope that stays, because it means that it means local business can survive and thrive. It means that our city can retain its personality and its culture. You know, I would really like to see those things stay or carry on their trajectory. Because the normal that we were living wasn't normal.
That's right.
I didn't think it was good.
And look, you know, I think you know, hopefully, I guess it's just the learnings people have had in this this time aren't forgotten, because I think, you know, there have been some positives to come from it. And Em, you know, yourself, on the back of that, you know, I know you're often involved quite heavily in Fashion Week and you know, fashion festival and things like that, showing like, what are you hoping for?
I think a common narrative like this Fashion Week is just about kind of rethinking the industry and the pace of the industry. It's kind of was moving at such an unsustainable pace. Like, it was, once you'd kind of clocked off that last collection, it was straight into the new one and constantly making stuff. And it kind of, I mean, Sherry's like, she's works on them made to order kind of already. And I think a lot of even, you know, larger fashion brands are moving away from just producing a whole range and work more on a made to order system, or having an indent kind of collection that's all year round, and then maybe producing those feature items really like at, you know, very, you know, definitely small product, like reducing the production pretty much. So I think it's just trying to avoid having, you know, stock left over at the end of the season and having to put that on sale. And so I think that's kind of a new way of and they talk about this open letter from all the fashion designers, just making a commitment together to kind of rethink the structure of like the fashion industry. And if we kind of all kind of take a step back and have a look at where we're going, which kind of what this year did. It was a kind of forced, everyone was forced to pause and have a look at that. So
I mean, it is interesting, because I think we've spoken a lot about the designer perspective, but, you know, in all of this, the consumers just gone through, you know, like, we've all been in this together. And I mean, I don't know if anyone else can relate, but like, I haven't been wearing my whole wardrobe in lockdown, you know, like, there's been a reality of it'll just be really interesting to see what that does to, you know, I think, you know, if you had like loungewear is probably taken off, but also maybe it just made people really recognize, you know, how much they spend on, is it occasion wear or just sort of trends, because there was just simply nowhere to wear it. I mean, I don't know how many people on the call are from Melbourne, but, you know, you could wear it to your local bakery, but aside from that, and it just I think
things
I
that
think
come out
we
of
turned the takeaway coffee run into a fashion parade.
Look,
that's
it's sure. I live in Fitzroy. It was wild. This was a real riot out there. You know. So I guess just a final question, because I really like ending these with a resource knowledge share, just in case others listening, you know, in the space and they want to do some more learning. You know, I think we've talked a little bit about motivation. You know, I think a lot of people's motivation waned during lockdown, and it was just a natural side effect of just all the stress and the challenge that we were faced with. And you know, people combated that by, you know, I think returning to reading or sort of throwing themselves into maybe, knowledge, knowledge uplift and things like that. So, you know, are there any podcasts, books, you know, however you consume your knowledge, are there any resources that you consumed that either helped your business or, like you said, Cherry, helped your mindset, which then, you know, in some ways informs your business? Cheers,
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. So, I mean, I think I find it really difficult to separate the professional from the personal with me, because the way that I approach my work is so, you know, it's so bodily and it's so in my hands as a maker, that it's basically impossible for me to not be the business and the business to not be me. And so in addition to a handful of fashion resources, which I'll get to, I found myself reading a lot of spirituality texts, a lot of you know, a lot about Zen Buddhism and how that approach to creativity and mindfulness within creative practices can be a really good thing, not only for yourself, but for the people around you and the world at large. So in coming home to myself and my creative practice, I found a real peace with working in the fashion industry in the way that I do, because fashion is often pitted as this like evil, superficial thing, but actually there are real heart and souls and crafts people down there doing the work of it. And so, yeah, trying to find a space where I land, you know, between style and like, and crafts, being a crafts person, like I found some resources like that really handy. But in terms of fashion, like actual fashion resources, I adore the Business of Fashion podcast. It's really varied in terms of, you know, they have interviews with designers and models and stuff. So there's sort of that aspect. There's all the fab and the fluff, but then there's lots of very serious, very, very serious business talk and talk about trends, which naturally come from social issues. You know, they spoke about COVID, they spoke about Black Lives Matter, they speak about the climate crisis, they cover absolutely everything. And you know, usually you have to pay a subscription for the Business of Fashion content, but with the podcast it's a free,
that is
you
a good little hack right
it's
there,
a
because
really,
I was always like,
good
can
one.
I justify this? So
can I afford it?
Yeah, well, there you go. I think everyone's
but
feverishly looking up the DOF podcast. And Em, are there any resources that you discovered? Look, it could even just be an Instagram, you know.
So I think for those who aren't aware, there's a website, payupfashion.com, that came about when a lot of the big brands pulled out of production, specifically in like Bangladesh, or they abandoned their orders when the production was half finished or completed. And payupfashion.com is just you can sign a petition to call out those big brands. And since they started that, a lot of them, you can have a look through the website, you can see a lot of brands have actually they've paid. So it's wonderful. Kind of showing that, they're showing the power of the people and kind of making people making those larger brands accountable for the welfare of the factory workers. So
absolutely. I mean, I guess the factory workers, you know, like we said, COVID has been a global pandemic. So you know, to pull out and not pay your manufacturers and your garment workers is just, yeah, get in there and sign the petition. Now we've got a couple of good questions coming through on the chat content. We've got about 10 minutes left, so let's look to explore these. So the first one, in terms of content and marketing strategies, have you developed any change through the past 8 months in how you create and share your content? Have you relied on a database of marketing material and content to advertise during this period, or were you able to create fresh content? Now, you've both been pretty exceptional in the content strategies. I know, Cherry, you've really used, or you've both used stories in a big way. I do feel like Instagram just had a bit of a facelift. I personally haven't got my head around that yet. But I mean, I would say that you've both used Instagram. Can you, in terms of content creation, are you able to just share just a couple of, things that have worked?
Yeah, I think IGTV really hit off in lockdown, like that kind of stuff. I mean, before that, I wasn't really using IGTV, but I think, and also like live. So I think the next best thing of people seeing the post was seeing the post live or something, it kind of made it more in a time that when we had to feel even closer, it felt like, if we're all online together seeing this like we are right now, it's like, live takes it to the next level, doesn't it? So I think, having that content shared live was one for us. And also just not be able to have our customers come into our store anymore just made that, like, that kind of, we had to then step up and make sure that we're keeping that communication going through all the social channels.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks,
Mm-hmm.
Sam. Thanks for sharing that. And Cherry, content creation, what was your approach?
So my approach, look, I again, as a new brand, I didn't have necessarily an established rhythm to how I was putting my content out there or what I was creating. But I think I became a lot more comfortable with just sharing the behind the scenes, doing mirror selfies to show the product where I couldn't shoot it on anyone. I mean, come in with my crazy outfits and like, hey, look at the trousers, and everyone's like, nice coat. I'm like, oh God, that went awry. But I definitely found a bit more of an easy pace with sharing the work in progress and what have you, because that, at the end of the day, it really does speak to what I'm doing here and what I'm trying to do. So
beautiful.
I'm a maker, so and I think that's what people really like about my product and my brand, and so why not show the behind the scenes?
Well, exactly. It is about the journey, and I think that in order to build that connection, people really need to, they want to see process. So I've definitely
realness.
And realness, exactly. They don't just want to see the gloss or the finished product. Well, there's another really interesting question here from Blaze. He said, I'm curious, as small business operators, do you think that going forward you are likely to team up or collaborate with other small businesses to share resources as a way of securing them? It's a great question that comes back to sourcing and I guess the power of the collective purchase.
Well, actually, it's a funny question because I do have another fashion friend who, him and I are often talking about sharing a sample machinist, like how we could, utilize a full-time wage of one person and split it between us. I think there's no reason why we can't share pattern makers or share machinists or share contacts or what have you, just to make sure that those people do stay in business and are able to continue helping us.
Yeah, I think that is a
or sharing studio spaces or whatever.
Well, I do think, when we talk about like building resilience you know, due to the experiences we've had this year. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to sharing, you know, it comes back to community, and it comes back to, you know, how can we help the community survive and thrive? Blaze, I guess while maybe the solutions aren't like at hand right now, I do think people are starting to think in this way, that is sort of, you know, should this happen again, how could we be I guess just evolving. I mean, sharing fabric. I think it's a very interesting concept.
There's definitely scope for amongst small designers for you know, doing things that, you know, maximize resources whilst making them accessible for everyone, because the costs to small businesses are prohibitive when you are literally paying for everything yourself, you know.
That's interesting. So because a lot of us are familiar, a lot of us have our own studios, you know, actually we're all in Brunswick, and are there spaces currently, Emma, I think you have a space where there's a maker space, is that right?
In my studio, on the ground floor, there's like a kind of, what is it, a maker space where they've got tools, a lot of like wood cutting, and everyone pays a subscription and they're able to utilize that space. So it'd be really interesting to see if there's something that develops like that in the future, for like the rag trade or the textile industry, you know.
It's interesting because in another conversation I've had, I work with textile waste, predominantly that of festival waste, and I often, people often message me like, you know, they want to make from waste as well, and it has sort of occurred to me that there is this opportunity just to share materials, or just share resources, and especially when you know, supplies are hampered or borders are shut. I think we need to get better at somehow having access and visibility to where the resources are. So, you know, who knows, maybe there's a good app opportunity for any techies out there, because, you know, there's no reason why this couldn't be more visible to know, you know, next week who's needing, you know, white organic cotton, and how can we kind of pull together to maximize our purchasing power. I think that's very interesting. I'm just now, sorry, just looking, there was just a question. All right, another question. Do you think that the fashion industry benefits from the cancel culture? Do you think that this disrupts corporate governance? That's an interesting question, Aviana. Do we think the fashion industry benefit? I mean, let's just look at that first one, because there's sort of two big questions there. Does the fashion industry benefit
from cancel culture? I personally have, it is probably getting a bit political, but I personally have a problem with cancel culture, because I don't believe that a flat out cancel of someone or their behavior necessarily inspires them to grow, or inspires an organization or whoever to grow. Like, I think there's definitely power in certain amounts of boycotting or voting with your dollar. I might be going off track a little bit here, but I think there are ways in which you can send a message to someone who's doing something that is morally inept, that allows them, whether it be a person or a corporate thing, to grow. Like, saying you did something wrong and you're out is, I just don't know how helpful it is in general. But in terms of helping the fashion industry, I'm not so sure exactly.
I think I'd probably need
exactly how it would benefit. Yeah.
Em, did you have anything you wanted to add onto that?
I'm just wondering if she's talking about, is the cancel culture, like the online. I mean, there's also the online shaming part of cancel culture, but yeah, I think.
I mean, I'm not sure if there's been a specific instance where that's maybe increased during this, this lockdown period. I know definitely we've seen consumers and audiences, like all of us, have been spending a lot more time online. I guess just conscious of time. Yeah, I mean, unless there are any other questions that anyone would like to ask, ladies, I think I'd just say, is there anything else you would like to leave the audience with? You both mentioned those great resources, but I guess any words of wisdom for designers or just the audience on the line as we head into an exciting new year.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming and supporting the local designers for this week. I think it's kind of nice for I think Melbourne has such a strong community of people being so loyal to the local businesses and independent designers, emerging designers. So want to thank everyone for showing their support.
That's lovely. Thanks, Em.
Yeah.
And Cherry?
Look, it is definitely nice to know that there are people out there that are interested in what we do and how we do it sometimes, and especially with these hard lockdowns and so much being online, it's really hard to know if what you're doing is actually of interest to people, if it's beneficial to people, if it's helping. So it's really nice for everyone to have come and joined us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
But other than that, I mean, the only wisdom that I think that I've perhaps that's solidified for me in the last 6 months is just chase your bliss. Whatever makes you happy, whatever brings you joy, take that and just pay no heed to the bad stuff, because what are we here for if not
we only get one shot at this thing called life.
We only get one shot. It
Absolutely.
might as well feel good.
And a lovely note to end on. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. Be sure to find and connect with us on socials. It's Cherry at Poet Studio, Emma at Hue Clothing, and myself at Etu Etu. Now there's 2 more events happening this week. Emma's got another talk Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. You can find it on her Insta. And I'm doing another talk on Thursday, same time as tonight, 7 p.m. You can find that on my Instagram as well. So a recording of tonight's session will be emailed to everybody. Just a big thank you for showing up. And sharing your time with us. So
thanks, Rach. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
And
just thanks to everybody who showed up tonight. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening. Ciao, everybody.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
See ya.
Thank
you.
Bye. I might stop the recording now.